The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, coming to your cordless, everybody. Hi, how you doing? It's Monday night, July 15th, 2024. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Sydney, Australia. We had a caller last week from Singapore, and I should probably find out what the time is there, but if two, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. And here in Northeast Minneapolis, where I'm sitting, in Elon Elmer's district, it's 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I'm Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night, episode number 135, for those of you keeping score at home. Okay, so first of all, I have to tell you what happened last week. We suddenly canceled Wednesday's and Thursday's show, and we put in a notice up on all the major media where we're broadcasting. We said it was because of the sudden death of an extended family member. I said that just for brevity. What actually happened is, if you watch this show at all, I've talked about this in the past. We share this broadcast studio with another company. And as a matter of fact, my agreement with them is if they need this space past 9 p.m., we don't go on. 9 p.m. Central, that is. And that's happened twice in the last year. And that was we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary at the end of this month in a couple of weeks. And that's exactly what I guessed it would be. I figure it would happen about twice a year, and that's exactly what happened. Well, how does that involve us missing shows last week? The man who runs the company we subleased us to, he suddenly passed away. He was a great guy, great friend of ours. It was not expected, and I didn't want to get close to screwing the employees of this other company up, so we just abdicated. It was just simple as that. So we missed a couple days. We were advertising the fact that last week was going to be the first time in like 6 weeks we did an entire week of shows. Nope, didn't happen. Now, hopefully it'll happen this week, and we're taking next Monday off. What do you know? So, what do you want to know? What we got going on? We got it going on. You know that. We got tonight's Monologue Monday, and man, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. You know, I'm just gonna be yakking like an idiot. And the really terrible thing is, I have to tell you this right up front. Blog Talk Radio is offline. We are not broadcasting there tonight. And we get the majority of our callers through that telephone number, 563-999-3435. I should have mentioned it right now because it doesn't work. If you call up, I have no idea what you'll get, but you won't get us. That's all I know. So don't call the BTR number, the audio number tonight. You can call in with your webcam at jimandnight.com/call, or you can text in real time to 408-458-5088. It's down there in the ticker, but this number right here, 563-999, doesn't work. So I'll tell you that right now. So unless you want to get on the horn with your webcam, and I encourage you to do that, but after doing this for a year now, we've come to the realization, for whatever reason, most people don't want their face on the screen. But you could be the exception, you know. I'm going to yak for 90 minutes about all sorts of stuff. I mean, we got so much news, it's mind-boggling. So anyway, so that's tonight. I'm talking for tonight. When I started this, I thought we maybe do weekend wrap-ups on Thursday and take phone calls on Thursday. We take phone calls every night of the week, but the problem is about half of our interviews are pre-taped, so you can't call during that. So, but let me tell you what we got coming on the next few days. We do have we got the big time guests here. Tomorrow night we have developmental philosopher Steve McIntosh. Now this guy's really interesting. He's written a slew of books, I think 7 or 8 of them, One of them, which I've been reading in anticipation of doing this interview, is called Integral Consciousness. The other one's called Developmental Politics, and he's basically talking about how spiritual philosophy relates to politics. It's really fascinating, especially appreciating considering what's been going on the last couple weeks. And we got the RNC convention tonight. And of course, we're going up against Gutfeld, which actually, are we? No, we're not. No, yes, we are. We are going up against Gutfeld, which I don't, which means who knows how many people will be watching this live, but whatever. Uh, that's we changed the time when we started this show at the last minute because Gutfeld changed the time of his show to put it an hour earlier, and I simply don't want to compete with him. He's like one of the few people I don't care to Hannity, whatever, Jesse, fine, I don't care. And we'll talk about Fox News in a few minutes too, because they are completely dominating the news landscape in America. There's just no way of putting it. Anyway, so yeah, tomorrow night, Steve McIntosh. He's written these couple books. It'll be really interesting to talk to him. Wednesday, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell from redstate.com and asthegirlturns.com is going to be with us. We're going to be talking about what's on her mind. I especially want her thoughts on the assassination stuff this last weekend. And then Thursday, we have our convention panel. So we do this month in review panel thing. It's become quite popular. I have to say it. These are among our most watched shows. So normally the panel is Tim Conaway, former executive editor of Hustler magazine, Don Zuro, intelligence operative, and Larry Newman, head of the Bail Bondsman Association for the state of Missouri, and also Bigfoot investigator. And and I don't want you. I got friends who watch this show and they say, what is with the Bigfoot crap? I find this amazing. There's people who totally buy the UFO shit. They don't buy the Bigfoot crap at all. I don't. All right. It's an undiscovered primate. Okay, fine. That's what Larry thinks. We've had panels on there. The panels seem to think some of the people investigating this. Stan Gordon, probably the most celebrated UFO investigator, easily one of the top 5 in America. He says he's looked into this and he thinks there's something paranormal going on here because people have reported 2 things. First of all, you have to understand, nobody who goes out looking for Bigfoot ever finds Bigfoot. All those shows you see, yeah, they get renewed even though those people fail. And now Larry got scooped into the Bigfoot Field Research Organization because he was a police investigator and they needed somebody who knew proper procedure. And he said, yeah, I'll do this, even though he didn't believe in Bigfoot at all. But he says about a year later, he's out in the middle of the forest in the Ozarks in Missouri. It's pitch dark. You can't see anything. You can't even see your hand in front of your face. But they're looking through a FLIR camera, an infrared camera. And he said he watched a family of Bigfoot, mama, papa, and baby Bigfoot for an hour, even though you couldn't see them with your naked eyes at all. But through the camera, through the heat camera, you could, infrared uses heat instead of light, and he watched them, and he said after that he was sold. So, Gordon's thing is that there's people who have seen Bigfoot, and like I said, so they were the big real field research organization. Obviously, I'm talking generalizations here. They go out, they look for Bigfoot. Most people who see Bigfoot are out on a picnic with their family, or they're going down to the local watering hole, or they're going through a national park or something. They're just out and about and they see Bigfoot. That's the vast majority of Bigfoot sightings are people who are not actually looking for Bigfoot. Okay, got it? Here's the problem with that, if you want to call it a problem. Stan Gordon's reported on this, and other people have too. The Bigfoot community's in 2 distinct camps on this. Gordon says, and other people say, that people said 2 things. They've seen Bigfoot disappear right before their eyes, just poof, gone. No running away, nothing, just not there anymore. And the other thing is, there's a few people said they have had Bigfoot telepathically converse with them. That's less than the number of the people who've seen Bigfoot disappear. But you can put those 2 things together, and Stan Gordon was on the show, and he said, I can't explain what's going on. And I couldn't even get him to speculate. Good reporters, they won't speculate, even though this entire show is based on speculation. What do you think I'm doing here? Like I'm some freaking reporter? No, I'm not. And we'll get to that in a minute too, because the people who are supposed to be reporters aren't reporters. So at least I admit it. I admit I'm not a reporter. So at any rate, the convention panel is going to be on Thursday, and Don Zero can't make it. So Jennifer Oliver O'Connell is going to be on Wednesday. She's sitting in on that panel on Thursday too. So we're happy to have her. And I told the guys who said no talking about your penis. No, we don't want to hear it about tonight. No, there's a female involved. She doesn't want to hear about it. Nobody wants to hear about your penis. We say besides we've heard it all already. We have. Okay, so next Monday, I'm taking Monday off. My mother's turning 100, and finally, she's moving to an assisted living facility. She's been living alone her entire life, or until my father passed away, which was 1989. So what is that? 35 years. She's been living alone, and at 100, we're celebrating her 100th birthday a week from Saturday, and literally at the end of the month on Wednesday, she's moving to an assisted living facility. So I'm helping her move. That's what's going on Monday. On Tuesday, Santa's going to be here. Now you're wondering, Jim, it's July. Why Santa? You get all this. I'm watching. What Let's Make a Deal. They're doing Christmas in July. I'm reading all this shit online about Christmas in July. That's not why Santa's coming on. It's not Christmas in July. It occurred to me when Santa came on. Santa was supposed to come on our last show before the Christmas break in December. Something happened. He couldn't make it. Okay. So he came on in January. I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd of January. And I thought, well, this is interesting. Nobody ever checks in with Santa during the rest of the year. Why don't we do that? So we've decided, now it's been about 5-6 months now, so we're a little behind. But I had my surgery, and that kind of screwed things up. We decided we're going to check in on Santa about once a quarter just to see what he's got going on. So we're checking in with Santa. That's what we're going to do next Tuesday. That's Tuesday the 23rd. On Wednesday the 24th, that's a week from this Wednesday, we have a guy named Ashton Forbes on. This is going to be really, really interesting. Now, Forbes says he's involved in, well, I will just summarize, a conspiracy regarding what happened in Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Or is it 360? Yeah, no, 370. 370. And he says, well, he doesn't say it. He's posted it online. He's posted it on Twitter X. He has 2 matching videos that he said were shot by the federal government that show it's really, I've seen them. There's basically like orbs or things that go around this airplane, and the airplane disappears right in front of your eyes. Poof. It just goes. It's like the Bigfoot. It's like the Bigfoot thing. It disappears. And Ashton says, what's happened here, I hope I get this right. He says what happens is that the government uses this as a test case for some sort of quantum entanglement teleportation device they have. This is like you're way beyond the bounds of what's considered established physics right now. And he said, although if I'm right, and so we're going to ask a lot of questions. If I'm right, he says he doesn't know for sure where the airliner was transported to, but he said he has a guess. If I'm right, he's guessing, but he says he doesn't actually know for sure. But these videos, he's right. I know enough about video production to know they'd be very hard to fake, very hard, and I don't think he has that sort of money or time, especially money. And so the videos appear real. And he has this story. Now, for somebody who says that we, and being the American military, has reverse engineered crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft, I'm sitting here, and I know a lot of you think that's complete utter bunk. But that's those things that they see off the Nimitz that these Navy pilots have been reporting for years. I think a lot, if not almost all of them, are actually ours. That's my guess. But we didn't get that. We didn't come up with that technology ourselves. We came up with retrieving these crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft. which David Grush says we've been doing that for 40 or 50 years. I think you go back to Roswell, it'll be 70. Matter of fact, it appears that there was a crash retrieval even before Roswell. There might have been one in 1941, going back that far. But it was Roswell where they decided they needed a protocol because they completely fucked this up, and then it got out into the world, and so they came up with a stupid weather balloon story and hauled it right back. But after that, it appears they decided, well, we got to get our crap together here and actually do this seriously, and they set a bunch of stuff up. Now this is really important. You have to remember this, that Roswell happened in July of 1947. In September of 1947, what, 3 or 4 months later, both the CIA and the National Security Administration was set up. So, I mean, most people think this is not really an accident. There's also this Majestic 12 thing, which there's still people in the UFO community that don't actually buy it, but there seems to be quite a lot of evidence to point to the fact that this may be true, which was a committee set up by President Truman, to monitor the UFO situation. So, and there's that also. So you have all this stuff. So I'm not gonna, I can't tell Ashton that I'm gonna discount a story. I can't. I mean, I've heard way crazier shit that turned out to be true. So we're going to have him on here. We're going to talk to him. We're going to ask him questions. We're going to play the videos that he has, and you guys can make up your own mind. So it's a fascinating thing, and the thing is, and to his credit, and he's right about this. You can call his theory nuts, but no one has anything better, and that's true. We still don't know what happened to this airplane. We don't. It's like no one's, there's been a few pieces of it supposedly found, and he's right. I know about how the government, I've done this long enough now, so I know how the government does misinformation. You could drop a spare part into the ocean and have it wash up in India, and people say, well, it's the serial numbers match. Well, how hard is that to fake? I mean, he's right about that. It's not difficult. I mean, you could, you put a new serial, you got a part you put a serial number on it. I mean, shit, And I want to talk about this in a few minutes too, about this assassination attempt on Trump. I had a friend of mine. Well, here, let me plow forward to this. Thursday, next week, next Thursday, the 25th, Jonathan Tobin. He's the executive editor of the Jewish News Service here in the United States. We're going to talk to him. He's a very astute writer. I want to talk to him about queers for Palestine because Jesus Christ. It's how stupid can you be? Really, how stupid? How stupid do you have to be? So Tel Aviv is one of the top 5 most gay-friendly cities in the entire world, and you're for Palestine. Yeah, and if they find out you're queer, well, guess what they do? They kill you. That's what they do. It's like, wow, that's a tough choice, isn't it? Shit. God almighty. It's like the youth of America is so mind-boggling stupid, but we did this ourselves. When I say we, I mean old folks, old farts like me. We brought this on ourselves because we have not taught these kids how to think. That's the difference between their generation and my generation. At least we were taught how to think. They were taught what to think, and that's the difference. And they ate it up hook, line, and sinker. So I'm watching today. I've got the coverage. Fox News is from the Republican convention, and they're running coverage about there's this protest on the outside, and these people, they look so pathetic. You know why they look pathetic? They won't show their faces. Well, aren't you a brave social justice warrior? It's like, God damn it. And here I got my stupid, ugly mug on this show 90 minutes, 4 nights a week. And, it's like, and you won't show your face. You got a little mask on or your little Hamas towel or whatever the hell it is. Oh, Jesus, F you. Really. Seriously. Okay, so I did talk about what happened last week. We were, we missed 2 days, yeah, and also, seriously, the guy who runs the company that we work with here, who passed away, he was a pretty cool cool dude, and he will be missed. He will. So, I don't have to tell you what happened Saturday. A guy shoots at Trump. From Trump comes about a centimeter away from his head blowing off. You know. Now, I had a friend of mine literally about 10 or 20 minutes after this all took place. I turned the television on about 5 or 10 minutes after. I didn't hear about it. I just happened to turn the television on about 5 or 10 minutes after the shooting actually happened. And a friend of mine writes back and he says, "Well, this is obviously staged. Uh, you use a BB gun and you can do the same thing." And I'm thinking, well, there's too much information I need to get in here. But one thing that occurred to me right off the bat is that, Trump wouldn't stage this because if somebody misses, he gets an eye taken out. That's the thing. I grew up in the country. I know about BB guns. Yeah, you can't really hurt anybody with a BB gun unless you shoot somebody in the eye. And I have grew up with people who lost eyes because of BB guns. So nobody, no, I don't think a reasonable person would do that. Now, as it turns out, it's pretty obvious because somebody got killed that this was a real event. And I have to tell you, I really, really um, felt for the family that lost. You go to a political rally, you don't expect to be dead. You don't expect your life to be taken. You know, that's like the last thing you expect. And here, this guy covered up his wife and daughter, and I mean, yeah, he is a hero. His name is Corey. What's his last name? I was going to write it down. I forgot to write it down. Was that terrible? Should remember. Guy's just a complete utter hero, and not only that, he was a hero with his life too. Volunteer firefighter, you know, like he was the captain of the fire department in the small town. Um, it's just like he's a guy who's running into a building that's burning, and you're running out. You know, it's really it's really terrible. I mean, and so you got this loser on the roof, and he's shooting at Trump, and he doesn't kill Trump, but he kills somebody he doesn't even know. I mean, there's still the reports have been kind of sketchy, but the last I've been able to hear now, 2 3 hours ago, there's still 2 people in the hospital critically wounded from this, and I've heard no prognostication of whether they're going to get out alive or not. But one person's already dead. So the guy's and then, then the amazing thing is, so okay, so I completely discounted the staged event, but I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I'm thinking, well, how'd this guy get away with this? And it's really true. I mean, it's like there's people posting videos now online about the fact that about who are there, who are literally pointing at the roof and saying, "Who's that guy? Who's that guy?" I mean, there's multiple people. They got a complete, utter, pure view of this gentleman on this roof, and he starts shooting. And so you wonder, it's like, how did this happen? Not to mention the fact, and this is, I got to point this out because this is going to play into what I'm going to bring up here in just a second. It was first reported he was a member of the shooting team in his high school. Turns out he wasn't. Turned out he got rejected by the shooting team because one of the members on that team said he was a comically bad shot. That was actually the quote. And for his test to get on the shooting team, they gave him 7 tries at a target. And not only did he not hit the bullseye, he didn't even, he didn't even hit the target 27 times in a row from I think like 50 yards or something like that. He didn't even hit the target. It's like he's everywhere. So, now he got off it appears he got off about 6 shots before, and you gotta give the sniper team credit. They killed him virtually instantly. He got off 6 shots in a few seconds, and then he's dead. I mean, they took him out. So, but, he didn't one shot barely missed the president, grazed his face. The others, he shot people he didn't know. That's a great way to go to heaven, isn't it? Yeah, you didn't just kill somebody, you killed somebody you didn't even know. It's like, who was not your target. Killing a former president's bad enough. Killing just a guy in a crowd, it's just I just think It's just so freaking sad, it's unbelievable. It really is. So, my friend was totally wrong. It was not a staged event at all. But was it a conspiracy to kill the president? Well, okay, so here, let's go through this because this is going to take a little while. And I'm going to talk about this. I don't care what you got going right now. I think you should listen to this. This is what's going on here. How many people do you need involved to do this? What's the minimum? Because here's a good rule of thumb when it comes to conspiracy theories. The more people that are involved, the better a chance you're going to get caught. Also, the more people that are involved, the better chance something's going to go wrong. There's that too. So, all right. What do you need? You need a minimum. Here's what you need, your absolute minimum. You need a shooter, and you need the two people who are the counter snipers on their two roofs. So there's two or four. There's a team of. There's one or two teams, and each team has two people in them. So we're talking about two or four people, and you basically need them to look the other way. So they have to be in on it, right? That's the way this works. And you got a shooter. Now, how do you recruit a shooter? Well, I'll tell you how you recruit a shooter. You recruit a shooter the same way you recruit Christine Baisley Ford to take down Ben Kavanaugh. That's what you do. You canvass the public. I'm convinced that the Democratic, and I assume the Republicans have the same thing. They have databases of people based on geographic area, what they've done for a living, what their support is like. Um, for example, I'm pretty certain I'm in a government database based on certain facts about my life, and I'm not a felon or any of that sort of stuff. Depends on why I'm a first generation American, where my parents came from, all sorts of stuff like that. People in my family that I'm related to, what they've done. I'm probably in a database somewhere. So what I think the CIA does, and it's probably the CIA who does this, probably, it's like I can't say, but my guess is there's probably a good number of people in the CIA who hate Trump. And I've always thought about this. It'd be really difficult to be in that Secret Service detail if you hated the guts of the guy you were trying to protect. It would be really difficult because you saw these people. They jumped on Trump in seconds, and they didn't know the shooting was done. Their job is to put their body between the president and a bullet. That's their job. And in that, they're all complete utter heroes. It'd be really tough to do that job if you hated the guy you're protecting, if you hated his guts. It'd be really tough to do it. So I'm assuming all those people, the people in the immediate detail of the former president, are all fans of his. You pretty much have to. I think the president he would need to actually like feel that out. But the perimeter people, the people who are just coming for the event, you never know. So uh, first thing you want to do is you want to find a shooter. That's what you want to do. Now this guy, and this is I'm telling you, I'm not trying to sell you on this theory because I'm not sold on it, but I'm just giving you the ins and outs of this. Here's a good reason this wasn't a conspiracy, because if you were going to try to find a shooter, you would have found a guy better than this. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he was a really bad shot. That's so, it's like he was only 20 years old, right, basically right out of school, so he had not a lot of experience, and the experience he did have did not bode well for him. So you'd be pretty tough to actually say, well, let's call this guy. Because what happens here, and this is what happened with Christine Baisley Ford, I don't know for certain, but I would bet my life on it almost. They call her up and say, look, we need you to do something for your country. That we need this guy not to get on the Supreme Court, and we need you to help us fabricate a story to make it happen. And most people, out of their like civic duty, patriotic duty, will do this. And a lot of times, I don't even think they even have to pay anybody. I mean, it's well known. Project Nightingale in the 1970s, they paid 400 of the most famous journalists in the United States to misreport stories. And you want to talk about where misinformation starts? You can pretty much start with that. I think it was 1972, if I'm right. And the really amazing thing is a lot of those reporters, these are the most, they went down the list of the 400 most famous journalists in America. I mean, you can assume Daniel Shore is on that list, Walter Cronkite was on that list, Huntley and Brinkley. everybody you saw on TV, and then everybody who had a major byline and like the New York Times or any of this sort of thing. But a lot of these people didn't even take the money. They did it out of what they thought was, especially then, pre-Watergate, people thought it was their patriotic duty to help out the country. So if the country if the country comes to you or the military and says, "We need you to do this," most people would do it still. And that I'm sure that's Paisley Ford. She's a good Democrat. They said, "Look, we need you to do this for us," and they either paid her some money or maybe they didn't. Now, of the 4 people that she named as witnesses to her rape by Ben Kavanaugh, not only did all 4 of them say they didn't know what she was talking about, one of them said that somebody approached her after that and said, "We'll give you," I think it was $50,000 to change your story. Well, geez, I don't think Christine Blasey Ford's doing that, do you? Well, it's like, yeah, you're getting paid to change your story? Oh, wow, who has the money? Geez, I wonder who has that sort of money. I wonder, like an organization that takes in $200 million a year, I wonder how they can come up with that sort of money. I'm a cynic. So, at any rate, my point is that's what I think happens if they want to do this. I don't think that happened here, and my proof is, or my point of contention, one is that they would have hired somebody who's a much better shot. They would have this is like this guy was apparently comically bad, and he failed. So it's like okay, so he failed at it. So because of that, I don't think that's what went down here. But I'm just gonna give you I wanna tell you the heads up on how the modus operandi goes in a lot of these operations. So, okay, so you find a shooter, and once again, you tell him we want you to, for the good of your country, for the love of your country, we want you to shoot the former president. Okay, fine. So you find that guy, and then you have to get to the SWAT teams, the counter SWAT teams on the roofs, 2 or 4 individual, whatever the kind is, and you have to make certain that they're on board. And by being on board, they basically do nothing. So you're going to ask them when they to look away. So all these people were pointing, and were pointing at this guy on the roof with a rifle. All these people. I mean, we have video evidence of this now. These people pointing, and so you have to tell 2 or 4 people on the other roofs who are doing the counter sniping, not to ignore them. That's what you need. So you need basically 3 or 5 people to be in on this. Now, I was thinking about this, and it's amazing. I've talked about this before. We've talked about this with several guests. It is amazing how this election is going down kind of the same way the 1980 election, Carter and Reagan went down. It's kind of the same thing. I mean Carter had a really disastrous presidency. Although I've said this before, uh, he wasn't necessarily a bad human being. And the one true difference between Carter and Biden is that Carter acknowledged things weren't going well. Biden seems completely clueless. I mean, I came to the conclusion after the debate, from the debate, I came to the conclusion I've always wondered, is he delusional or is he just lying to us? Is it just gaslighting? I've come to the conclusion he's delusional. I don't think he is lying to himself or the public, or he's lying to himself. I mean, he's lying to himself. He really does think things have been going really well. I've come to that conclusion. I think the man's crazy. I'm watching Fox tonight, and Laura Ingraham was saying that, well, he's a narcissistic grifter, and yeah, he is. That's exactly what he is. So he, the amazing thing is, and I'm not the only person who's been pointing this out. You can read this anywhere online. If they really do tone down the rhetoric here, as they kind of talk like they're going to, the Democrats have nothing to sell. Nothing. I mean, so he even in this interview he did with what's the guy on NBC, who's the anchor for America? Oh, like Holt, Lester Holt. What a bunch of bullshit. Even, he does this interview and he says, "Well, how can I ignore all these evil things he said?" But first of all, here's the thing: they never mention what they actually are. And then if he does, there's things that have always been completely debunked. Very fine people on both sides, you know, um, suckers and losers, All this stuff's been completely debunked, completely. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you um, that Donald Trump is an angel of a human being. I'm not going to do that. He has said some things that have just made me cringe. I mean, but and I don't know if you could find a single Trump supporter who won't say that. But the thing is, we're all flawed. Now, my friend will say, "Well, no, my president should be above that." Okay, yeah. Here's the thing about my president. I need my president to do a good job. I really don't care. It's like Clinton. Now, you can go on about the Clinton Foundation. You can go on about Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote for her. I refuse. I think she's a I think she's an incompetent idiot. You can go on about how she's evil, and that might be true, but she's still an incompetent idiot in it, but I thought her husband was brilliant. Now, her husband loved to chase the poontang. There's just no doubt about that. They spent years covering up his escapades. And George Stephanopoulos, you're watching, or Snuffleupagus, whatever you want to call him, he's on television and you're watching him because he spent 8 years coming up for Bill Clinton. Actually, I think it was 6. I think he got out of there before then. But yeah, but the thing is, Clinton actually knew what he was doing. I mean, I've said this before. There's been only 2 transformational presidents since Reagan, and that's Clinton and Trump. All the other guys are basically kind of more or less placeholders. Even Barack Obama, who's an incredibly intelligent person, I mean, extremely well spoken. Interesting, not necessarily good orator per se, but extremely well spoken. There's no doubt about that, and extremely intelligent, but he has no talent to do anything. And I've come to the realization after living for 68 years and roughly 50 years of adult living that intelligence and talent are 2 completely different things and often do not go hand in hand. I mean, so you had in Clinton a really intelligent guy who actually could get something done. He knew how to manipulate the system. And you have in Trump, I think Trump is an extremely intelligent guy. People think he's stupid because he can act like a dork, and he can. I also wonder if he's a little bit on the spectrum too. He looks like that a little bit, you know, but he knows how to manipulate the system. Another guy who does is Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is a boring individual. I'm just going to say that straight out. The guy's just boring. I don't know, he seems like a nice man. I'm sure he loves his family and stuff like that. But he has a talent for manipulating the system. He knows how to get the system to do what he wants it to do. And that talent goes beyond. It's separate from intelligence. So why? All right. Well, I got totally off track here. Oh, I started all this because of the fact I want talking about the parallels between this election and 1980. Now, in 1980, actually 81, was it only a couple months after the inauguration where John Hinckley took a pot shot at Reagan? So it was after he became president. So there's a little different here. This was before, but that was the last failed assassination attempt per se that actually got off. I hate to use the term, but actually got off. I mean, I'm sure. I guess they have killed numerous assassination attempts since then. The public never found out about them. But 2 were people there were actually shots fired. That was the last one. And before that, you got to Gerald Ford, who I think was 2 or 3 times. I mean, that guy got lucky, man. It's like, all those people, they're all in. Hinckley just got out of jail. What has it been 43 years later, and he's only out now on work release. He's technically not out of jail, but they do let him leave. So, and I don't know, considering the severity of that crime, if that's the right thing, but that's a debate for another day. So, we want to talk about conspiracies. You got to go back to JFK, and I have to talk about this too, because this is a big deal of mine. Because I've been thinking about this. I still remember I was sitting in front of the TV. I was 8 years old when they were talking about the fact that Kennedy got shot in Dallas. It was lunch hour, and I was home from school for lunch. And what I would have been in second grade, I think. And so I still remember this, and it's pretty obvious now that we were really, really lied to. So I just heard recently Somebody played back. So, okay, so, obviously Lyndon Baines Johnson became president. He was Kennedy's vice president. He became president. About a month after the assassination, Johnson and J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, are on a phone call. And at that time, all phone calls in the White House were recorded. I don't know if that's still true, kind of assume it is, but they were all recorded. So the recording of this tape got out. Now, the thing is, everyone on these phone calls knows they're being recorded. So you have to keep that in mind. But I've listened to this tape before, and they're talking about what actually went down in Dealey Plaza, and it never made much. It's like it didn't. The conversation never made much sense to me. Until somebody explained to me, pointed out that what they're talking about is somebody shooting from the front, because Johnson asked about the fact that would Kennedy have would he been hit a third time if Connolly wasn't in the way, and Connolly is not in the way. If the shooters are all in the back and shooting forward to the back of the limousine, Connolly's not in the way, and so they talk about this for several minutes, and Hoover basically says, yes, if Connolly wasn't in the way, Kennedy would have got hit a third time. But you'd only have to be shooting from the front for that to be applicable. It's crazy. And I've listened to this tape. I've heard it several times. It never made much sense to me until somebody explained what they're actually talking about. No, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about somebody shooting from the front. Now, there's another thing. I'm a huge JFK conspiracy theorist. I have my own very, very detailed conspiracy theory of what happened. Um, what was I going to say? So, oh Jesus, what was I going to say? Man, this is not a good time to lose your train of thought. Anyway, there's a guy named James Files. So Files was in prison in the 1990s, and somebody tipped off JFK investigator about the fact there's this guy in prison who says he knows something about the assassination. And I can't remember the name of the reporter. He a legitimate reporter, and he talked to Files for months. And months Files kind of led him on. But at any rate, this is what it turned out. And that reporter ended up getting killed in a car accident, which is another thing. So, and I was gonna look this up. Richard Belzer, the comedian who was on Homicide. Uh, he wrote a book. He was obsessed with the JFK assassination too, and they figured out, of the 300 or so people in Dealey Plaza at that moment, 78%, not percent, 78 of them, or roughly one quarter of them, died under suspicious circumstances within 5 years. And Belzer said, and he actually published the formula in his book, and it was quite lengthy. I have this book, I read it. The formula is quite lengthy, but he said the chances of that happening by chance at a random um, set of the population are 16 trillion to 1. So, oh yeah, okay. So, this is what I was going to say about the fact that there's a film. The Zapruder film. Okay, the thing with the Zapruder film is 16 millimeter film running at 18 frames a second, and it's 1963, and they don't have technology worth shit. They can barely get a spacecraft into orbit. They don't have to. So and that uh, Kodak 16 millimeter movie camera was state of the art for that time. It was expensive. I can't remember how much he paid for it, and it was the first time he was using it too. He actually basically went to film the motorcade as a test to see how the camera worked. It was 18 frames a second. He's holding it with his hand. It's jerky. His hand is moving. The film is jerky. It's a mess. But here in the 21st century, and they didn't even need AI to do this. Apparently, they just did it. They cleaned up the film digitally bumped it up to 60 frames a second, took out all the camera movement, and I've seen it. I don't think I can run it because I think someone owns the license to it, so I didn't even bother to kind of look. I've seen this cleaned up version of it. In the cleaned up version of this film, at the end, it's plainly obvious that Kennedy gets shot from the front. Plainly obvious. You don't need and you can see it basically. And though at the there was a woman who worked at the Dallas Police Department. She was the chief of forensics there for like 25 years, and I can't remember her name either. I don't think she's there anymore, but she was there for like 25 years, and she had access to all of the evidence they had, and she looked at it over it numerous times, and she said, and she's a forensic expert. This is what she does for a living. She said she was absolutely certain, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, that Kennedy was shot from the front. Well, if Kennedy's shot from the front, there has to be two shooters at least. So what James Files says, this is really interesting. This is what he says. He says there were three shooters in the plaza. He was behind the fence on the grassy knoll. And okay, anybody can tell this story, but he's got a little bit of corroborating evidence here, which I'll get to in a minute. He's behind the grassy knoll. Chuck Nicoletti, his mob boss, is in the Daltex building, which is the building across the street from the Texas Book Depository. And he said there's a third person in the sixth floor of the depository, although he said he never found out who that person was. And that gets to something I'm going to talk about here in a minute, too. He said he never actually knew, but he said he knew there was a third shooter in the Texas Books Depository now. And Files orders, and he's working for the Chicago mob is what happened. And apparently this is still the way this works. The CIA by charter, by statute, can't work in the United States. It's completely foreign-based information. So if they want to do something in the United States, they have to hire a third party. And at that time, when it came to killing people, they hired the Chicago mob because they were really good at it. And also the mob had a thing because the Kennedys were trying to shut them down. So they hated the Kennedys too. So, and you were asking, why did the CIA try to kill Kennedy? Well, mostly because the Kennedy, he completely fucked up the Bay of Pigs and got a whole bunch of people killed, and he wouldn't bring in air support, and they hated his guts forevermore for that. There's also another thing too. This is worth bringing up, although I don't allow. This is probably a relatively minor thing, but this is actually a fact. What I'm telling you is not speculation. 10 days before the assassination of President Kennedy, he signed an executive order that ordered the Department of Defense and NASA to share with the Soviet Union everything they knew about UFOs. And of course, it had to be reciprocal, that the Soviet Union would share everything back. That was an actual executive order that was signed by Kennedy 10 days before he got killed. Now, there's a lot of people who think that was the final straw. I don't know. That might be just a chance, but that is real. You can go look that up. That executive order actually did exist. So Files said he was ordered by Chuck Nicoletti that not to shoot unless it was necessary. In other words, the two guys in the back were going to shoot first, and he said, unless we don't kill him, take a shot. And he said they didn't kill him, so he took a shot. And he's used a very specific pistol, kind of a rifle, called a Remington Fireball, which was still being made by the Remington Company. But in 1963, it was what they had as a prototype. Believe it or not, I don't know, it's goofy, but the Remington Company shared a prototype with the mob. Say, what do you think of this? Well, the ammo guy, the munitions guy for the Chicago mob gave it to. He said, "Try this," and Files apparently fell in love with this. It's kind of a combination pistol rifle. It's a very long pistol or a very short rifle, depending on how you want to. So the thing is, why do we believe James Files? I mean, any jerk can make the story up, because Files said at that time he had a signature. He would take one of those. So he only fired one shot, and he said he hit Kennedy right in the temple, right? And he also said, interesting, that Nicoletti firing from the back hit Kennedy in the head at virtually the exact same time, which might be the reason all these um, files has even said that. It might be the reason all of these um, um, pictures and X-rays of Kennedy's brain are so messed up. It was actually 2 shots, but the way Files tells it, his shot's the one that actually killed, that blew Kennedy's head up. So what he would do is he would take the shell casing of the bullet he used. In this case, there's only one. He picked it up off the ground and he bit into it, left a tooth mark, and he left it on the fence there, on the fence railing. Okay, so what? Okay, it's November 2nd, 1963, right? In 1987, 24 years later, some dentist, I think from Houston, and his son decide they're going to try out their their new uh what, what, uh Jesus, what are they called, the things uh, uh uh metal detector, right? They decide they're going to try the metal detector. Well, let's go to Dealey Plaza and see what we find. So they go back to the behind the fence, and that fence is still there. It's the exact same fence that was there 50 years, 60 years ago, and they're plowing around with a metal detector. Sure enough, they find a bullet with a tooth mark in it. Yeah, 24 years later. And I don't know that I don't exactly know the exact timing of this, but apparently um Files told a reporter about this, what he did with a shell casing before they found the shell casing. So, and if the shell casing does match the gun too, there's that also. So anyway, Files has that going for him. No one's ever disproved anything he's ever said, even though a lot of people think it's bunk, and I understand. But I kind of, because of that one physical evidence, and also the fact that, like I said, he's never been disproven. I have a tendency to think he might be right. But anyway, so that's how those people pulled that off. They had about, it turned out they had about 7 people involved in that whole thing. They had 3 shooters and 3 or 4 guys who came to town. One of the guys on his deathbed, his name Chauncey Holt, and he said he was brought in to manufacture Secret Service credentials, fake ones, for these people so they wouldn't get caught. And that's so they had and also, so apparently Lee Oswald was one of these people. Although, like I said, there's no evidence that he actually did any shooting. There's never been any forensic evidence that he was actually the guy in the sniper's nest there, even though he was in the building. And that actually is another thing too. People saw him in the second floor break room about 1 minute after the shooting, and he's sitting there very calmly drinking a soda, drinking a Coke. He was even stopped by policemen. Police immediately went through the building with the manager of the Texas School Book Depository, and he was stopped by the police. And the manager said, "No, that guy works here, and he's fine." And that was it. Supposedly, it's been timed. You can go from the 6th floor to the 2nd floor. If you run at breakneck speed, you can make it in a minute. But that's like really running at the top of your freaking lungs. And everyone said he looked calm as can be. So I'm bringing all that up because the thing is, these things are faked. That's the thing. So I don't think, for the reasons I told you, I don't think that happened here. I think this guy's just a goofball, and he's just a loser who just missed. But you never know, because we're gonna get to that when we talk to this Ashton Forbes guy next week. He talks about all the supposedly the hoops that the government, and when he's talking about the government, he's talking about the Malaysian government and the American government jumped through to fake the disappearance of this airliner. And you can say, well, that's stuff, no one would do that. But no, people would. You know, like I said, it's really easy to change the serial number on an airplane part and toss it in the ocean. It's very easy to do that. So that's just one of many things. In the meantime, so They take a pot shot, or this kid takes a pot shot at Trump on Saturday night. The mainstream media, folks, if you have a now, here's the terrible thing. If you read John Nolte in Breitbart.com, probably their most celebrated columnist, excuse me. I mean, he's going on about this constantly, but the fact is, these you can't hate these people enough. When I mean these people, I mean the people in the mainstream media. Okay, Biden, the Democratic Party, they want to win. They're going to lie. I've been doing this show in various incarnations now for 5 years. We've done over 500 of them. Like I said, various incarnations. Some were live radio, some were podcasts. This show was video. Will continue to be video. I've done about 500 of these. I've only had one sitting politician on the show ever, and that was kind of a fluke because it's something that it was a guy from the Minnesota State Senate of all people. So no one, no, not a federal deal, and it had something to do with counties in eastern Minnesota wanting to succeed and join Wisconsin. Believe it or not, it was almost like a joke. It was just, but it was serious. They were serious about it. And I don't know if I'm right, they're still working on this, but there's counties in eastern Oregon that want to join, that secede and join um, Idaho. And this is not like the Civil War here. You're talking about changing states. This is entirely possible. You need voters in both states to okay it. So in that sense, it may be unlikely, but they're still trying in Eastern Oregon. I know that. My point is, I don't have sitting politicians on the show because all they do is lie. That's all. And I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat. I do not give a shit. They just lie. So we don't have them on. I expect Democrats to lie. I expect Biden to lie. I expect it. The mainstream media, no, their job is not to lie. I do not expect them to lie, and they're assholes for doing it. They completely have given up their mission of informing the public. So they've decided that they're going to be an organ for the Democratic Party, and they're just going to lie through their teeth about everything. I can't stress this enough. Unfortunately, if you have cable television, you are funding CNN because part of your cable bill goes to CNN, whether you watch CNN or not. And that's why I was talking about John Nolte. He talks about this constantly, about the fact that CNN has been bolstered by these cable carriage fees for years and years and years. Their ratings are completely in the toilet. Let me give you, here's another example on ratings. So what happened on Saturday night is, where did Americans turn in to watch all this stuff going down? Fox News. And I'm not talking about even just cable television, anywhere. Fox News. 8 million people on Saturday night tuned in to Fox News. Second place, ABC News, 3 million. ABC News is on free over-the-air television. Fox News is a paid cable network. You have to pay to watch it. 8 million to 3 million. Unbelievable. Let me give you another number. Hold on. I told you I was going to end up talking like that. Rasmussen asked 1,500 people in America, and this was, believe it or not, it's hard to believe. This is actually before the debate on June 28th, where Biden soiled his pants. They asked, and this was on June 25 to 27, asked 1,500 Americans, they're a polling company. They said, what news outlet do you trust the most? Number one, Fox News, 28%. Number two, none, 20%. None. It was Fox News and nothing. That was it. It says, I mean, this is really CNN, with one exception, their ratings have gone down 36 months in a row. It's unbelievable. One month they ticked up. I can't remember what, I think it was at the beginning of this year. It's nobody's watching this crap anymore. Washington Post last year lost half of their readers and $77 million. And the new publisher wants to make some changes, and he was rewarded by staff. They ran a hit piece on their own publisher in the Washington Post. Unbelievable, because they don't wanna get fired, and, we don't care what you wanna do, F you. No, is there any reason why anybody should watch or read this shit anymore? No, there isn't. It's unbelievable. So, I mean, first of all, ABC News, George Stephanopoulos and what's her name? I can't remember her name. Uh, they did a little piece on Sunday morning about the fact that, they blamed what happened to Trump on Trump. So, guy almost comes within 1 centimeter of getting his head blown off, but it was his fault. But and like I said, Biden gets on with Lester Holt and says, and at first he said, "I'm really it's terrible what happened to Trump," and he says, "But the thing is, you can't." He's talking about Trump. You can't say all those things and not expect something bad to happen. Well, what has he said? That's the thing. They constantly talk about this. He's Hitler, you know. He's evil. He's going to be a dictator. All this stuff. What has Trump actually said? So tell me. But no, they don't say that. And then he'll say, well, suckers and losers, not true. Or very fine people, not true. It's like they keep talking about the shit that's decidedly not true. Nolte, John Nolte at Breitbart, he's published a list. And he has 56 things on it of basically hoaxes that the mainstream left wing media has published since Donald Trump became president, of stuff that they said they reported on that was not true. I mean, the Steele dossier. I mean, you can go on and on and on. None of this stuff was true. And then there's that guy who wrote that book about the fact he said I worked in the Trump administration, how terrible it was. Yeah, he worked in the Trump administration. He was literally some 25-year-old kid working in a basement. He'd never been in Trump's presence. I mean, he made it all up. It was all just bullshit. He did not know. Not only did he not know Trump, he didn't even know anything about what he was talking about. He made it all up. Like, God, I can't. What do you say? I'll tell you what you say. So, and Strom and I, uh, David Strom from Hot Air, him and Jazz Shaw over at Hot Air, and Ed Morrissey too. They come on the show regularly. Jennifer Oliver O'Connell's at Red State, and Red State probably has a little more of a higher profile than Hot Air does, but still, it's like just like, and and Strom talks about this constantly. I'm just here to back him up. It's like, no, don't pay attention to these people. We do this, and when I mean we, I mean the people at Hot Air and the people at Red State and the people at Town Hall Media and the people at Breitbart. Yeah, no, we're not getting rich. We're not. But I try to tell you, I try to tell you as best I can what's going on, as honestly as I can. Just like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there was a conspiracy theory to kill Trump. I don't think there was, because if there was, they did it really, really badly. The only thing the counter to that is this administration has shown itself to be spectacularly incompetent. I mean, well, first of all, that's actually true too. Even if the thing I said did not go down as I said it did, even if that's true, the fact is there was an enormous breakdown here of security somewhere, because this guy was literally out in the open. I mean, this is not you're not talking about a guy hiding in a bunch of trees or hiding between buildings or something like that. You're not talking about somebody who was not easily seen. He was A whole bunch of people saw this guy and even photographed him, and somehow he slipped through through the cracks. So supposedly the woman who what's oh god, I see I got too many facts in my head. What's the name of the woman who runs the Secret Service for the Biden administration? Is it Clancy? I can't remember. Anyway, she's a DEI hire. She knows nothing about the business. She's incompetent. I mean, these people there, and Trump said this during the debate. And it's really, really true. Biden never fires anybody. He won't fire any. I mean, no, for no reason. I mean, what's that guy's name? Brink? I keep saying it's Sam Brinkman, but the guy who was stealing the women's luggages. I think he's the only person in the Biden administration who's ever got fired. So uh, Biden, they don't do that. And this woman, some reporter asked her point blank, why should you keep your job? And she said, well, I can't remember what she said. It was just gobbledygook. I'm sure she's getting paid something like $200,000 a year. And the thing is, and she's such a loser, she's never going to be able to replicate this job. So this is the problem. These people, they're losers. Now, I've said this too. I've said this before, and I really, really mean this. In America, the people who go into politics are losers. They generally they go into politics because they can't do anything else, and it's exciting, and you might become famous, and you can become rich. It's pretty easy if you know where to grift. You know, you can make money that you never make doing any other thing, and that's because you can't do anything any other thing. And so the problem becomes, why should anybody of any accomplishment go into politics? They shouldn't. Excuse me. That's why it's amazing that Donald Trump did. Elon Musk announced today that he's going to be, at first, he said he was giving $45 million to a super PAC to support the Republican candidates. Today, he announced he's giving $45 million a month until the election to the super PAC. So that's putting your money where your mouth is, I guess. All right, so let's go on. This is part 3 here. I'm gonna go into part 3. Part 3 is where we talk about all the paranormal stuff. And like I didn't talk enough about already. This thing with the Malaysian Airlines, it's gonna be real. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk to this guy for a good hour, and also play the videos too. I've seen the videos; they're fascinating. First of all, he's right; they exactly sync up completely, and so they're it's like it's the same. The videos are of the same event, and yeah, well, whatever. Um, I don't know if you're aware of this, but people talk about consciousness all the time. Nobody really knows what consciousness is. We can't even come up with a good definition for it. And so, Popular Mechanics, excuse me, ran an article about the fact. So, and they talked about what I call the Turing test. I've talked about it on the show many times. The Turing test was invented in the 1960s by a scientist named Alan Turing, and he said the Turing test is basically, here's the premise: if you can talk to a computer and you can't tell that you're talking to a computer, the computer must be sentient. Now, at that time, the only way you could talk to a computer is through a keyboard, but they said, if the computer types back and you can't tell if it's a computer or a person, the computer must be sentient. Now, we know now that's not true because AI does this in spades. As a matter of fact, I mean, basically, AI basically came to put a kibosh on the Turing test. It really did, because AI can answer back to you not only through a keyboard but through actual voice mechanism. Can actually talk to you completely lifelike, and yet it supposedly has no consciousness. But here's the thing, and this is the point of the article: how do we know it's not conscious? And this is what I've been talking about. I've asked a lot of guests this question too. If we're talking about artificial intelligence, at some point, if it actually becomes truly conscious, would we even know? At what point does it cross a line? Where is the line? We if the I mean, going back to the Turing test, if the voice on the other end is completely human like and says stuff and can make us laugh, and and we're getting to that point already now where you really can't tell whether it's a human or not. Isn't Why isn't it conscious? There's a theory that, and the scientists don't like this because it's not hard science. There's a theory that consciousness is off-site. In other words, very simple analogy: consciousness is in the cloud. The analogy I've heard is that your brain You think, okay, so you have intelligence in your brain. Well, think about it this way. Your brain's a receiver, like a television receiver, right? So when you die, it's basically like smashing the TV. That doesn't mean the signal goes away. The signal's still there. It's just now you don't have a receiver that can get it. That's all. That's the only difference. And that makes there's a lot of people in my of my ilk who follow this thing. That seems to make a lot of sense. I mean, that would be the way it's worth. I've been reading a book by a guy named Andrew Norton is his name. This is terrible. It's terrible. I talked to you and I forget. And what do now that I think about it, what do I end up forgetting most of these names? But it's really true. So I've been reading this book, and this guy, he's passed now. He died in 2016. He interviewed hundreds of people under hypnosis, regressive hypnosis, about their past life experiences, or mostly about their deaths. And it's astonishing. The people who do this, who do this hypnotherapy stuff, it's astonishing how similar these stories are. That's the real kicker about it all. And most people say, well, you hypnotize these people. They say there's this very famous case years ago about a guy who said in a previous life he was Rudolph Valentino, and maybe he was. But the fact is, the vast, vast majority, 99% of the people who undergo this aggressive character are no end up they go back to his previous life where they're of no renown whatsoever. They're just completely ordinary people. So that doesn't hold true, you know. I mean, okay, maybe one guy was once Rudolph Valentino, I don't know. But the idea that the consciousness will be offsite, and the other thing is, and you have to understand this too, we don't know where long-term memory is stored in the brain. We still haven't figured that out. Short term, yes, we know. Long term, no, we don't know. And the brain seems to be the whole analogy seems to be like your classic 8080 computer. It's like you have short-term storage, you have long-term storage, you have the cloud, and so the theory is, well, long-term storage is in the cloud. Well, what would be the cloud? Is that the universe? You know, uh, Ian Stevenson, the guy who interviewed hundreds of young children, all under the age of 5, who said they were reincarnated. And he asked some very specific questions. What was your name? Where did you live? Who were you married to? What did you do for a living? Where was your house? Do you remember the house number? He asked them all these questions. 70% of this information all completely checked out. And almost all these kids were interviewed pre-internet or like pre-1995. So and he said there's either two things going on here. Either these kids are truly reincarnated and were actually another person previously, or else somehow they have tapped into some universal database that holds all the facts and thoughts of dead people, and somehow they've been able to tap into that. Now, and if you stop and think about it, the second conclusion is just as momentous as the first. If that's the case, is there is the I mean, there's a lot of people think the universe itself is just a giant database. There are scientists who work in the quantum realm writing papers now about the fact that they think literally the entire universe is actually made up of information. All those quarks and those subatomic particles, all that stuff that's floating around, it's actually just a stand-in for actual information. I don't know. Life is strange, folks. And then I might as well mention this because I put this in the description here about the fact that there's stuff floating around now about the fact that this has been floating around for quite a while about the fact that the reason we don't see or we can't interact with aliens or can't see anything beyond this planet of extraterrestrial nature is because it's basically they have the aliens themselves that virtually walled us off. And there might be something to that too. There's been this thing, what is it called? The Black Knight. There's an object in far Earth orbit. It's way beyond, it's not like, it's way beyond 22,000 miles off the surface of the Earth. This thing's been out there for years. and it seems to be large, and it's a black object, and nobody knows what it is. And because it's black and because it's so far away, no telescope can really get a good look at it either, although there have been glimpses. No, and nobody knows what this thing is. I mean, it's like it's way too large for us to have been put up, and it's been up there for quite a while, like 20 years or something like that, you know? And some people think that's just an ET spacecraft. It's just monitoring what we're doing. And that's all I'm doing too. I'm just monitoring what I'm doing. So did we talk about everything we want to talk about tonight? Let me see. I got a little list. Uh, well, here I know. I'll just mention two pieces of news that you probably already know, and that is a Florida judge voided Trump's document case. It got thrown out. Now, the federal government says, well, the way it was thrown out, they can refile it, and they say they're going to do that. But for the time being, it's dead, and there's no way it's going to raise its ugly head before the election. So there's that. And also, I don't have to tell you because this happened early tonight. Not only was Trump officially nominated by the Republican National Convention, but he picked JD Vance as his running mate. So, and that'll be interesting too because Vance is really young. He's 39. He's barely old enough to be president constitutionally. So, yeah, and he's got an interesting life too. And a lot of people are attracted to the fact he hasn't been in politics very long, and I find that attractive too. I do not believe in professional politicians. I think all these people, I mean, God, Nancy Pelosi's 84. She's older than the president. And not the, and have you seen her? She's starting to look like a walking corpse. It's like, just give it up. Go home. I mean, I don't have to. And no, it's not just her. Chuck Grassley's 93. He's a Republican. Although I have to say, he's pretty sharp mentally. He does not seem to have the problems a lot of these other people. But still, you're 93. Just go the fuck home. It's like, let somebody else have your seat. I mean, seriously, do you need to hold on to power that bad? Because at that point, it's not money, folks. It's no way it's money. You've either made money or you haven't, and if you haven't, it's too late. No, it's all about power, and it's just we just have I don't know. We have a bunch of people in this country. They're just freaking nuts. you know. And I can sit here and pound on the Democrats, and I can pound on Biden, but seriously, the Republicans are just as bad. They are. The only reason I'm pounding on Biden right now is because, my God, I mean, this has been like, going to go down as the most incompetent. I mean, he's outdone Carter for sure. This is going to be the most incompetent presidency maybe ever. He's never going to be worse than James Buchanan, who basically caused the Civil War through his ineptitude. And for that reason, he will probably always be on the bottom of that president's list. But Reagan or Biden will be second. Okay, so that's it for tonight. Tomorrow night, Steve McIntosh, developmental philosopher, and he wrote the book Developmental Politics. And he talks about in the book Integral Consciousness. So we're going to talk to him about both these things that we touched on tonight too. I'm really looking forward. I want to hear what he has to say. Very interesting guy. I think he's written 7 or 8 books on all sorts of stuff like this. That's tomorrow night. Wednesday, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell from RedState.com. Thursday, our convention panel. Now we're starting that show right after Trump's speech is done, whenever that is. That's when we're going live. So we've been getting very good viewership for these shows. So we're going live right after the speech. And next Monday, a week from tonight, the 22nd, we're taking off. So I want to thank you folks for watching. I really appreciate it and listening, but not tonight. Tonight you weren't listening. If you were listening, it's because you were watching and not looking at the screen, because we're not on Blog Talk Radio. So I hope they get that fixed by tomorrow. So I want to thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. Good night, good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie, and good night to you wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care.